Managed to catch up on events earlier on this evening, those clashes between people attending that vigil for Sarah and the police. Looking first at the Sunday Mirror, Susie. Kate, I know what it's like to be a woman out at night, also talking about the protesters clashing with the police. Let's talk about those clashes first, Susie. I mean, there are so many issues here, aren't there? But whatever you think about whether the vigil should have taken place or not, these are not good scenes.
No, and the woman there who's the ginger hair, who's been photographed in perhaps the most sort of iconic image that's come out so far of her being bundled to the ground and arrested by police officers, has been giving a few interviews. Her name is Patsy Stevenson. She's 5'2" tall. She's not a threat to any police officer on his own, never mind when there's half a dozen of them bundling her to the ground. And she said that she was dragged off, arrested, and put in the back of a police car, police van, and asked for her name and address, and then let go. Now, if that's all you want of her, there is no need to arrest a woman, throw her to the ground, and get the cuffs on her to ask her name and address if you're an officer of the law. That is entirely and utterly disproportionate. Patsy, as there's video evidence for happening at the time, was sitting peacefully on the bandstand. And what happened before these scenes, we don't thoroughly know, but there are reports that the police tried to stop women giving speeches on the bandstand, tried to shut the women up, and that when they did move in, they trampled the flowers, they knocked the candles over, they were insensitive. And of course, the people that were there gave them a bit of lip back, and then things kicked off. There do seem to have been some troublemakers there as well, but the police know how to handle this. They know how to do this easily and better, and they have done it better in cases of Black Lives Matter and Extinction Rebellion, which were far more disruptive than this was. There was no need for any of it, and whoever loses their job over this, as people will, it really ought to be whoever it is in the Met who decided, as a matter of principle, not to engage and discuss with the vigil organisers how they could do it and how they could have COVID marshals and how they could do it safely and do it at different times and so on. Because that's what happens with normal protests. Someone in the police decided not to bother talking to the girls. And that's why it's kicked off as badly as it has.
We'll have a look at the front of the Sunday Times if we can slide that one in, because they have managed to write this up on their front page. Outrage as police clashes tarnish vigil for Sarah. Matthew, Steve Baker, the backbencher, saying tonight that these scenes are unspeakable. And interestingly, he's calling on Boris Johnson to change lockdown laws, because there are questions here, aren't there? I mean, the protest tonight was probably going to be pretty safe if it had been allowed. People were going to organise things so people were socially distanced and wearing masks or whatever, if they'd been allowed to do it in the first place. And you have to also ask about our right to protest. Civil liberties are at question here as well, aren't they? I mean, it is a very difficult dilemma.
Very, very difficult. I mean, I want to say I thought the scenes were extremely disturbing. I agreed with what Susie says, almost all of it. I also happen to agree that the rules, I think, are too draconian when it comes to meeting outdoors. There's very little risk of transmission. But it is the government that has decided to use the precautionary principle to give us a set of rules where we are supposed to stay at home, except on a number of limited circumstances, and the police are employed to enforce the law. They did it in what seems to be a very heavy-handed way. I personally would like to hear a bit more of the context. Susie says reports are coming out of troublemakers. There were many people who were peaceful. The police overreacted. What I don't understand is why people are calling for heads. Cressida Dick should be sacked, or Priti Patel, on the night that it happened, without just listening. It won't take long to find out more about the context. It doesn't mean one is condoning in any way what the police have done, but merely trying to find out precisely what and why it happened. But I do think this looks terrible for the police. On the issue of the law, as I understand it, I may have this wrong, but it was tested in law in the High Court, and the judge decided that the vigil should be postponed. So it's not just the police. It's also I might be wrong about it, but it's also politicians and judges who I think have intervened.
The judge said that he couldn't intervene in the debate, and it was up to the protesters to go back to the police and try and discuss it. And then it became clear that it wasn't. I think that's right, isn't it, Susie? I mean, I see you shaking your head.
The court did rule that there was a right to public protest, and that was legal, even under the pandemic legislation. The issue is up to the police to decide if it was proportionate. And seeing as the Met Police did not engage and sit down and discuss or want to put anything in writing with the organisers, how could anyone have a discussion about what was proportionate? They failed in their public duty.
Priti Patel obviously coming out very quickly this evening and saying that there does need to be an investigation into what went on. So we should see that fairly soon, hopefully. Let's just go back to that issue of Kate turning up. Front page of the Sunday Express for Sarah. Kate joins thousands paying tribute. What do you make of this, Susie?
If you want to be cynical, you can say, well, look, someone happens to have caught it on camera and she's not wearing her face mask so she can be spotted. And she's probably one of the most safe women in the country. She's been protected by armed police officers since before she married William. But on the other hand, you know, she's also got a perfect right to be there. She's also got every reason to have been concerned about her own safety before and since she got involved with William. And I think it's incredibly powerful. It's one of those times where, especially in the week that we've had, talking about whether or not royalty has a right to speak and to tell people what it thinks, and it has expressed an opinion. The fact that the future Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland ignored police advice to stay away and went to this vigil peacefully, happily, and marked what had happened, was silent throughout. But that's incredibly, incredibly powerful. If the Duchess of Cambridge can do it, then the rest of us should be able to do it without being thrown to the ground and being arrested for it.
And it is a very powerful image, Matthew, and it is on the front of most of the papers.
Yeah, I think the symbolism is extremely powerful. I mean, first of all, I think it's so easy in a situation like this to forget the central tragedy in all of this, and the fact that we need to get changes in our culture and in our legislation to ensure that women are safe when they walk on the street at night or at any other time during the day. And to that extent, I think that what Kate has done will send a powerful signal to political elites that it is no longer acceptable to allow this scenario to drift anymore. There needs to be action. And I'm glad to say the government has come out and said that there will be action. The number of convictions for sexual assault and exposing and groping and other things of that kind is remarkably low. And I think there needs to be a concerted effort across the House of Commons and beyond to make sure that this changes.
Susie, a final thought from you?
I would just raise Matthew's point about the historical context and waiting for the full picture of things to come out. I don't know if people can see this. This is an image of the Daily Mirror from November 1910. It's an image of police officers throwing a suffragette to the ground because they were trying to gain access to the House of Commons so they could have their voices heard. That was 110 years ago. There is, frankly, enough context and historical context, and we know the way women are treated and the fact that women appear to be more of a threat to police than Black Lives Matter protesters or Extinction Rebellion protesters who bring the capital to a halt, or football fans, or even Tommy Robinson, who gets to wander about wherever he likes. But a woman, a 5'2" woman, can be thrown to the ground and bundled into a police van by half a dozen coppers because she's the one who's the problem. It just goes to show that a woman's voice is very powerful. Perhaps we should listen to it more often.
OK, we must leave it there for the moment.